Okay, I think it's now a good moment to invite all the other speakers to the panel, that we can open discussion to the wider audience too, and hear some comments from the other speakers. Okay. Okay, we are ready, I think so. Perfect. Sylvain, you have a question?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I was carefully listening to everybody, and I have a very simple question. What is the definition of art today? What do you think is will be relevant as the mainstream in the future when we speak of art? The other question is, we spoke a lot of technology. Can we, I shall say, have soul when something is done by technology? Where is the part of the human soul when, I shall say, we are going into this direction? Perhaps it's a little bit provocative, but I think that as an old collector, I'm still perhaps attached to perhaps an old notion of what could be art.
Okay, let's start with the first question, the notion of art. Someone wants to say something of this.
Yeah. Pretty tricky questions to begin with. I mean, like, we are 7 billion people on the planet, maybe 8, I don't know now. And we all relate differently to art, right? And it's all about having enough tools to have access to art and be able to find the content that we relate to. I believe, like, again, there's no right definition of art, it's subjective. So quite hard to answer this question. I wonder what's your take on this? And maybe you started to elaborate your thoughts with your second question, like trying to relate, trying to establish this definition by taking technology into account. And again, right question, and what do we feel when we meet technology? And we all have different experiences. And I believe the fact that we were, the new generation is born in technology, like we connect very easily emotionally with this because we have so many experiences built upon technology. And I believe this will be something that will make connecting with technology much easier. And again, it depends on how we utilize these tools or what the artists are going to do with this. How far the tools are going to be in being able to not manipulate, but talk to the brain of humans. Right now it's a screen, but what if at some point we can press a button and we feel something in the brain through injection of chemical or something? Like, I mean, we could speak about this for hours because there's many paths to explore. And yeah, quite a broad question.
Eva, do you want to add something to this?
So what is art and where is the soul in technology? You know, I guess I subscribe to the kind of Boysian, everyone is an artist, everything is an artwork. I think that the art market and art institutions define what art is and who's an artist, often very unfairly. And I guess what I'm most interested in is how artists use their work to discover the world. And I think that when we pay attention to the, like I said, the artistic artifact, we overemphasize it because that's convenient for the commercial market. We miss out on the work that art can do in the process of its creation. And that's what's interesting for me. And in terms of the soul of technology, I mean, I really like Ursula Le Guin's definition of technology. She says something like, technology is the active human interface to the world. I don't have the quote in front of me. And I think, you know, the inclusion of the human in that definition is so important. I mean, this, like, I think we're kind of past the idea of the human versus the machine, and we understand that we are very interrelated. And so I see the soul in all of this technology. I see the human soul in the natural worlds, you know, I see them as very linked together, entangled.
Yeah, it's amazing that this notion of art question still follows humanity through the centuries, and I guess this every new invent of technology, we are coming back again, so to say, to the root questions, and asking this again, which is, I think, not bad, because in the end, like, people want to kind of find the meaning on everything new they see, and the changes also. So I think here is also a perfect point maybe to switch to a bit different question, like but not less passionate about NFTs. So they have been around for some years, but still we have very polarized opinions. So one part of the audience love them, and they're huge fans and collectors of those, and the others really are against this. So Seifert, what do you say to the people who hate NFTs?
Well, I start by saying that NFTs are a tool, and as such, opinions that we have about it should be opinions about the tools. And if these are not opinions about the tool itself, then it means that they are biased because of an utilization of this tool. And that maybe there are other utilizations that we haven't considered when forging our opinion. And that's when I like to introduce other utilization of these tools and talk about how it's meaningful for artists, how it's meaningful for collecting digital art, and, you know, all of this. And unfortunately, the media coverage of NFT has mostly been through what's been sold a lot. So profile pictures such as apes, Basie. And of course, when you see that as non-NFT, non-crypto people, you're like, this is meaningless. Like, this is sold for millions of dollars, and it's a JPEG or something. And of course, you don't have the technical background to understand, nor the small introduction that will be required to understand why this is selling, because it's speculation, not because of the art. Actually, we could even ask, is there any art behind this at all? But yeah, I like to try to broaden the spectrum of the people that have this very polarized and negative opinion towards NFT, which again are just a tool.
But isn't it speculation kind of a natural ingredient of the art market? Sylvain, as a collector, do you buy NFTs, or you prefer the paper contracts from the traditional galleries? How do you kind of act here, or which stand do you take?
Like many people, I had this kind of shock when people was sold at Christie, because, you know, we discovered the NFT with a sale, this famous sale at Christie. Before, nobody knew what was NFT, and I still think that a lot of people don't really understand what is NFT. To tell me once again, what is important is always to try to understand our time. And I think the NFT are part of our time. NFT is a new way to authenticate. It's a new way to sell for artists, and your example was very, very good, Sifar. It's a new way to create art. It's a new way to give access to a new market, crypto money. It's a new way to have access to a new community. So for me, NFT is something like that. Then after, naturally, we will collect NFT, like we have collected internet art years ago. I think it's part of our time. It will become more and more important, perhaps different of what it is today. But I think that we cannot neglect NFT. But we have to look at a little bit how it will be out of this hype period, what it will begin, what it will be, but it will be, I think, one of the tools of the future. Undoubtedly, it will be one of the tools of the future.
What about your Ukrainian pavilion? Are you using their NFTs, or how do you support Ukrainian artists?
That's a good question. Naturally, we will. There will be NFTs, and already on VR they are selling NFTs, and naturally we want to push the boundaries by digital fashion, for instance, selling fashion through NFTs. We want to push the boundaries in the future of creating experiences where people will, where experiences which will be monetarized as an exhibition in a museum, creating NFTs and monetizing that. Naturally, I think this is the future. And it's already happening with Fortnite in a certain way, or other platform. But on the metaverse, I think the Ukrainian pavilion will be a very good, for us, test, case study test to actually say to touch all these questions and to try to bring, answers.
There was raised several times this notion of community, also by Seifert, and it has been told that Tezos is community of the community. Seifert, do you agree? Because your platform is also based on Tezos. Like, do you see how do you have community? How communities affect everything what you do?
Yeah, we have a community, and this is said about Tezos, I believe, because of one key factor is that, first of all, the first NFT platform that launched on Tezos, Iketnunk, was very open and kind of underground. But there is also this notion of low transaction fees. So in the biggest blockchain for NFTs is Ethereum. But for instance, when you want to transfer one of your token to another of your account on Ethereum, it costs 50, 70, maybe more, just to do a basic transfer. It costs even more to mint something, to post a project on this blockchain. And as such, it's a big barrier for the artist and for actually anyone who wants to be involved in the ecosystem. And so that's why I believe Tezos reached out to an audience that was a bit left out of this process, as well as an audience that was already a part of the Ethereum. So it covers, a bigger community, but at first it reached out with people that couldn't, and somehow ideals, for eco-friendly blockchain, because Tezos as well was much more optimized in terms of energy. So there were many factors that sort of were the premises required for a very active community, and a community that loves what they are doing, and maybe are not there for the money, but rather for testing the medium, experimenting, publishing a bit of their soul on this medium. And I think that were components that created this thriving community. And when there is such a thriving community, it attracts more people that share the same ideals and that want to be a part of it. And again, because it's been such a cheap chain for the art for a long time, people were there for reasons other than money at first. Most of them, at least, you couldn't make thousands of dollars with a drop. It was very rare events. And I think it's great. Like this blockchain has grown because of that. And like right now we are seeing the core of the community being these people that we were there from, the beginning. and it's thriving, and it's underground, and very active people that are there and share some big ideals.
You mentioned before this platform Hiket Nunk. Although things are decentralized, there was one guy who was running it, and then one day he just decided that he will close the platform. So how we could kind of protect our digital collections, and also the creation, like if everything is decentralized, but in the end there are some founders behind.
Yes,
So what is your take on it?
There's the answer built into your question. Raphael, who was behind Hiket Nunk, pulled the plug on the front-end interface, so the website that allows you to interact with the smart contracts. But the community behind it, like in 2 hours, published a new front-end. And because there's this decentralized aspect of the core business, the core of the data is stored on a decentralized application, on the decentralized blockchain, and because the contracts that store this data were written so that nobody can pull the plug at any time, then community was able to reorganize itself and build something out of this. And Hiket Nunk is the best example, I think, today of why decentralization is important for protecting the assets, protecting the collectors, and protecting the artists, the whole community, actually.
Yeah, so community now, they did object, if I'm right? Instead of Hiket Nunk.
Yeah, and yeah. We are not ships anymore that need to oblige to some rules by company.
Exciting. Eva, question to you. Like, have you, in Creative AI Lab, have you investigated the NFT topic, and how do you have any projects on this?
Yeah, I would say definitely through the Creative AI Lab, but more generally, our team is really interested, obviously, in Web3. And I think, we already talked about this, but for us, the most interesting part of the communities that are forming. And we really see that in how productive that they can be, how engaged they are, there's very little need for an institution. So like on a personal level, I'm super interested in them on an in my job, I'm kind of like, where does the institution even exist here? And maybe it's not necessary in these ecosystems, or you could see that as an opportunity to imagine, like, maybe there are some infrastructures where we can learn from kind of what happened with all of the open source community work that so much of our tech that we regularly use is built on. The very few public institutions are taking care of that open source community, and maybe, museums become sort of like harbingers or spaces for taking care in the same way that like the Internet Archive are, or whatever. So kind of like how to be a key and useful community member as an institution is definitely interesting to us. I mean, I think the fact that like generative artists, who are, pioneering in computational art are able to make money off of their practice is like, that cannot be understated. And it's not my field, but I'm not trying to belittle that at all. Like, I think that that's amazing. The fact that people can supplement their art practices and quit their jobs and focus on what they want to be doing. I think that that's amazing.
Here's a question to Sylvain in the chat. Audience are asking how you integrate the large-scale installations and performances into your virtual museum or metaverse project. How do you deal with these formats?
In digital, there is no physical constraints. And for instance, the few images of the museum, virtual museum that I've shown you, it's a museum which is 600 meters long, 500 50 meters high and we can change the dimensions whenever you want. No, I think that this is the beauty of not having, I should say, physical constraints. But the other beauty of not having physical constraints, you can create different types of experiences. Take, for instance, this virtual museum that I've shown you. The first virtual museum that we've made, people were just walking inside. And we've shown this museum to children and they really played inside. And so we decided to make a new type of museum where instead of just walking, they can fly. And instead of looking at the artwork, they can take the artwork and play with it. So I think we move from contemplation to experience. And using the metaverse or using virtual reality, you have a lot of, I should say, possibility and creative possibility to make these experiences edutainment, education and entertainment.
Mm-hmm. But then artists specially create for your virtual environment the work, or do you adapt existing work to your environment?
It depends. It depends. What we've done first was to, I shall say, to adapt our works to the environment, but also we had artists creating in VR. We had an artist, Miao Ying, who has created in VR. And more, I think, especially with NFTs, and especially with this Ukrainian museum, we'll have also people creating a special art for this, I shall say, new ways to experiment and to experiment art. Naturally, we will push the boundaries and on that. But what I want to insist is, for me, what is the most interesting thing is how, as a human being, we will interact in this new world. How, as human being, with our avatars, we will interact inside. How we will create emotion between, I shall say, digital people, digital influencer, digital artists. How they will be creating, I shall say, emotion, coming back to this notion of soul. And I think that the biggest problem that you will face with this digital art and is how you can, I should say, bring emotion to the people. Because the people are still human people, human beings, and they react as a human being with a certain type of emotions. And I think this is really the biggest challenge. It's not just only putting artworks, but making these artworks have the same emotion than they have when they have been, I shall say, experienced in the real life.
Well, you mentioned before like gaming, and I think gamers have here particular advantage in all these metaverse environments. So many what I have tested, and including our virtual exhibition, which is built in Unity. I really feel myself a bit left behind and have to practice more how to navigate and what to do in the environment. For instance, for the gamers are kind of a piece of cake. So yeah, we maybe have to change a bit our navigation habits here. But also, like what while curating this virtual exhibition, I experienced actually the digital world has limits, and it has their own limits. So you cannot really put whatever format, whatever size of the file. Artists are not happy with the colors, and doesn't glow, and it's not the right size, and so on. So I would say they have just like different limits and different problems, but you know, this working flow and relation between the curators and installers, I would even say it's pretty similar. So we are kind of in the end, it's we are translating this this dialogue, and I don't know, Eva, how do you experience? I think you have this Hive Mind project, right? Like how easy was to get artists and audience engaged in this platform?
Well, I do think, yeah, we're at a similar disadvantage, just being this kind of legacy institution. People kind of don't give us the benefit of the doubt. They're like, oh, you're trying to kind of get in this world. But we tried to do it in a way where it was built sort of from an existing community based in Berlin called Trust, who, you know, work cooperatively and in this way and work through knowledge games. And then this is like one iteration of a knowledge game that's sort of like coming from research that's happening within their community. But yeah, I mean, technology has so many limitations, and like producing this work, the art world often doesn't understand the human labor that goes into developing new software, doesn't understand like how to pay people properly, how to build a team properly, how to get something to multiple audiences on all different kinds of devices that, you know, yeah, can talk about this all day. I mean, anyone who works in this field knows that things always go wrong.
Yeah, that's why we name them experiments, right?
Yeah,
So
we only do experiments.
Okay, here is actually, let's continue Eva, with you. Here's one question in the chat. How do you frame the difference in the calculated encoding, the coding of machine learning artworks and the encoding, decoding an artist would do themselves in their brain or paintbrush? Wait, maybe I will paste this question for you. I am a bit lost already myself. Okay.
I think I kind of get the gist.
Okay.
Like
I copy pasted also for you here.
I mean, this encoding, decoding, like for a long time, computer science, and even like last year when we were in conversation around the grants we were in conversation with the computer science team. They didn't quite agree with this theory of the calculation of meaning was possible. And like they were saying that the computer, you know, can decode, but it's not involved in the encoding process through calculation. And actually, you know, if you think about our sort of collective consciousness of like what we think of as a doctor or an apple or a dog or whatever, you know, these, like, I'm just giving a simple example, that calculation of the meaning of those languages, or those words as images, has been calculated by machine intelligence through like a Google image search algorithm. And like that, I guess that has, you know, that's a very simple example, but it's not different from how we encode and decode meaning. It's just that the scale and the way that it's instrumentalized is different because everyone uses Google image search.
Right. That's true. Here is, I'm picking more questions. So one audience member is asking Sylvain, do you agree that NFT has widened the audience of the digital art? I guess we can also address this to everybody. Back to NFTs.
Naturally, it has augmented the audience. It has created new possibilities for the artists to express themselves and to make a living. It has it had put under the radar artists who will have never existed if the NFT was not existing. And so I'm totally agree with that. That's why I think that NFT will remain and will be part of the art world because of all that. I'm absolutely convinced.
Yeah. Actually, I'm dying to ask Sylvain you one question. Why you focus on Chinese art as collection?
Because I'm crazy. No, you know, you have to be a little bit like Tintin in the Middle Kingdom, when you decide to collect Chinese contemporary art, only Chinese contemporary art, when you live in Paris and it's 12,000 kilometers from Beijing and you don't speak the language. You know, we always wanted with my wife to be challenged by our collection. You know, we were collecting design when nobody was collecting design. We always want to, you know, to get a little bit out of our comfort zone. Why we went to Chinese contemporary art? That's a good question, because we happened to go to China in 2005. And when you come from a Sleeping Beauty city like Paris to a Red Bull city like Shanghai, you have a shock. And we do think that art is a mirror of a society. And we wanted to, I shall say, to find the energy that we're experiencing in the city, in the Chinese contemporary art. And, you know, it's always interesting to look at art in special times. Unfortunately, people are looking at Ukrainian art at this time. But I think that what will happen in terms of art in this time in Ukraine will also be very interesting. Very interesting. Remember Picasso with, you know, his paintings and his works related to the war. I think that when we live special times, that's the best art which is produced. And so perhaps it's an answer to your question.
Yeah, I think you also gave an answer to your first question about the notion of art. And maybe a last round of questions, Seifert, like, can you give a few tips to the people who start to collect like NFTs, like what they should buy and what they shouldn't, and
well, I'm not sure that I'm a great example of that, because luckily with my art I make a few cryptocurrency, and the only rule that I have is that I need to like it when I buy it. I don't have any advice regarding is it worth it to buy, or any investment advice. I'm really bad at this. I buy stuff that resonates with me, either technically, conceptually, and yeah, I just enjoy, you know, watching at it and remembering what I felt when I saw it for the first time, what I feel now. Did it influence any work on the platform or the platform that I'm seeing? You know, yeah, I have very much a sensitive approach to this.
Okay, just buy what you really enjoy. Yeah, maybe that's the key. And last question to Eva. What kind of projects currently you are working at Serpentine, and what we can see in the near future?
Yeah, we're working on a really exciting project, which we haven't talked about much at all, with an artist called Gabriel Masson. And we're making a multi-level game, and there will be an NFT component. Yeah, we'll be launching in February.
Oh, that's exciting. So we will keep an eye on your activities too. And thank you so much, all the speakers, and thank you, audience, for following us and contributing with your questions.